Friday Jobber on the second day of May 2014, our first program in the month of May. The old coffee pot is on, the coffee has been brewed, and the cup is here. And normally we have tea here, but we don't want to be droll, as one would say. But nonetheless, we'll have a piece from Dr. Amowitz of the crystal ball that is Larry Sabato's shop. We'll talk about that, but first we'll go to the ball scores. Incidentally, we did a special program yesterday on May Day, the International Workers' Holiday, and it was a bit of a polemic with some historical and current political news about the minimum wage, and of course the struggle there. And the whole idea, and President Obama has elaborated on that, so we'll not, as they say, double back on territory that has already been covered. But basically, if you listen to the song that was the theme of his 2008 campaign, Yes We Can, it is a song about struggle and the history of struggle in the U.S. against apartheid and various right-wing forces. So this is definitely apropos to the May Day struggle that started out in the city of Chicago for the 8-hour day. President Lyndon Johnson's grandfather was involved in that, and to a certain extent his father. And President Johnson explained, we told this story before, but we'll tell it again, that things changed when he ran for office in the 30s and 40s. That campaigns were based on personality, the personality of the candidates out there. So in other words, begins more of a personalized game, sort of like a commentary by Napoleon Hill, or one of the many people are in the selling game there that teach people how to quote-unquote sell things. There are various methods used to sell things, and various people use these methods, and for some people it works. But sales has always been a hocus-pocus situation. It's not based upon any scientific kind of operation. The people at Salesforce, which we are associated with from a long-distance standpoint, as a developer, they do this and enhance the product. We're not necessarily endorsing SalesPoint. If you're doing cold calls, you're doing cold calls. But our experience in politics is about the same. It's a little different in that you're selling a product, and we'll use real estate for instance. If you notice, a lot of realtors, or most realtors, have a picture of them, and it doesn't matter what they look like. The inference there is, if you see a person and you bond with that person, or see that person quote-unquote is an honest person, you will then be persuaded to at least explore buying some real estate from them. It's always on their cards and always on their websites. Whereas other types of sales that people make, not necessarily there, but they do in fact bond with the person, talk with the person, tell a little story, which is effectively the same thing politicians do. The political strategist, I guess you'd call him, Mark Pinhead Penn, is now with Microsoft as, I believe, one of their vice presidents. So in other words, what has happened there, Microsoft and various other corporations have adopted the same type of mechanism that political candidates do. So in other words, Microsoft is trying to sell whatever products they're pushing at any given time. Obviously, they're not pushing their internet browser. It had a big hole in it, and they were literally forced to backtrack there. If you have XP, they do have a fix for you. But otherwise, if you want continual fixes, I think it costs you around $1,300 a year per workstation or seat or computer or whatever. I don't know what they have. This is for businesses. The UK government, people of that nature. I'm not certain what an individual plan would cost you. But there are various people that offer some solutions there. But part of the problem is, no matter if you're using XP, I would not advise it. Because the fixes from Microsoft are not generally available. Therefore, if you're using an intrusion or type a program, with simply antivirus, spyware, etc., and now they're called intrusion. They're integrated all in one, sort of like American politics. But anyway, it would be basically useless. So if there's time to upgrade, we suggest you go to Linux, an open source solution, if that's the type of hardware. In other words, a hardware that is very low profile in terms of speed and memory, CPU capabilities. Now, if you insist on staying on the Windows side, there was something called Windows 8 Starter that would virtually run on any kind of hardware out there. We sort of just threw this in, getting a little bit off topic, but we were looking at Mike Allen, and he has a little free newsletter. You can get it. It's sponsored by someone, who knows whom, different people at different times. But it's sort of a roundup of things that are going on in D.C. and a little bit of the gossip. So he's kind of like a little Drudge Report, and at the same time he adds what the political talking heads are doing and various ramifications there. He was talking about Hillary the Monster Clinton, that basically an article they have it, she wanted to be president but not necessarily run for president. Well, I can understand that situation. The monster literally has been in campaigns over 20 years. She was in campaigns in Arkansas when Bill Clinton ran for governor, attorney general, etc. And she was in his various presidential campaigns before he was a successful one. And she was at the White House for 8 years, and then at the Department of State and various other places. And an unsuccessful campaign against the then Senator Obama from Chicago. But it is kind of a thing, and he was saying, well, she hadn't bonded with the press. It's not, in our opinion, it's not necessary to bond with the press or to have the press like you there, because the press itself has changed. It's sort of like the White House Correspondents' Dinner. They are still there, and it is basically a press corps that has few people of color, in particular African Americans. We'll talk more about that when we talk about Dr. Sharp and some of the recent attacks on him from somebody writing in the Salon. But these kinds of things are out there, and where do they serve in the modern day? We'll have more of this on the week that was. It'll be back up, incidentally. We have not canceled out the program. But we'll go to the scores now, and then we'll kind of double back on some of the machinations involving Mr. Donald Sterling, including his prostate cancer. But nonetheless, the line scores here. The Rays were in Boston, 2-1 Rays over the Red Sox there. The line score, let's see, the Tampa Bay, 2 runs, 4 hits, 1 error. Boston, 1 run, 6 hits, no errors there. And we can go to the Brewers. They were in Cincinnati. The Reds 8-3 over the Brewers, and the line score, I think we have time to give it here. The Brewers 3 runs, 8 hits, no errors. The Reds 8 hits, 8 runs, 12 hits, no errors there. The LA Dodgers had the unfortunate situation of appearing. They did a double hitter today. So this was the first one. They beat the Twins 9-4. The Atlanta team was at the Marlins in Florida. Marlins 5, Atlanta 4. The Padres were in Baltimore playing the Orioles. Orioles 5, Padres 1. The Mets were at the Rockies. The Rockies are still playing a good baseball out there. 7-4 over the Mets. Rockies are there. The Mariners were at the Yankees in New York. Mariners finally pulled a game out there 4-2 over the Yankees. And another final here in Fenway, 6-5 Rays over Boston. And in the second game, we tuned into that game. The LA Dodgers finally pulled it out 4-3, and I'll real on the line score on this in 12 innings. LA 4 runs, 11 hits, 2 errors. It was a sloppy game. It was played in cool, inclement weather, no doubt about it. The Twins 3 runs, 6 hits, and 1 error. So it was not a baseball clinic. The Blue Jays of Toronto were in Kansas City. Blue Jays 7, Kansas City 3. And in 10, the second game there, these were rainouts, so they had to play double hitters, hard on people. The Padres were beaten 6-5 by the Orioles. Now, the Dodgers are on their way to Florida to play the Marlins. They will be arriving in Florida probably after 6 o'clock Eastern Time, because they have to board their plane in the Twin Cities and go through checking, etc. So in other words, a very hard and involved situation. Let's go to the NBA, and then we'll bring the latest on Mr. Sterling. He's always around. Evidently even moved along a bit there. Let's get the full scoreboard up here. This is the playoffs, incidentally, for the NBA, the National Basketball League. The Warriors have forced a Game 7. See that right away here. The Pacers and the Hawks here. Pacers used late run to force a Game 7 there. The score, the Pacers 95, the Hawks 88. They played in Atlanta. The Thunder over the Grizzlies 104-88. The Thunder avoided literally going south. Of course, they are south, but nonetheless. The Clippers were beaten in Oakland by the Warriors 100-99. Doesn't get any better than that. So the Warriors are alive to literally play another day. The New York Post reported that Sterling has, this is the Donald Sterling, has prostate cancer and has been fighting it for a while. He denied treatment to a former assistant coach. Let's just get this. This is the New York Post. This is Murdoch's newspaper. This could wind up being a pretty short ban. Disgraced, well, who knows about that? Disgraced racist Clipper owner Donald Sterling is battling cancer, surprising those around him by beating the final buzzer for as long as he has. As a source told the Post, they thought he would die 2 years ago. One source said, well, he hadn't died. Of course, death is one of those situations and that one doesn't know. Sterling could be around for a very long time. People have been predicting his demise. I'm sure he has the best drugs, no doubt about that, but, he's a mean old bastard, probably, too. The source said some of the medications Sterling has been taking responsible for puffiness. That's not unusual. In an ironic twist, he refused to pay for prostate cancer surgery a decade ago for then Clipper assistant named Kim Hughes. I contacted the Clippers about medical coverage, and they said the surgery wouldn't be covered. Hughes told the Journal in Racine, Wisconsin. Well, you can expect that. They said if they did it for one person, they'd have to do it for everyone else. For the Clipper players, fortunately came up with the $70,000. And also, old Sterling has been on the air. He's called everyone saying, "Tell me I'm not a racist," a source said, noting that the friends are refusing for fear that old Sterling would be recording them. Sources say Sterling has been telling friends that he doesn't understand the public furor over his recorded conversations. And he's also working on a deal to talk to old Barbara Walters. So I suppose he's got his own PR campaign going there. Sources said since the scandal erupted, Sterling has been holed up in a penthouse atop a nearly empty office building he owns in Beverly Hills. He fled his oceanfront Malibu mansion. He shares that evidently with his wife. Paranoid about it being electronically recorded, a neighbor said. She and Donald think there are bugs everywhere since this happened, and even on their phones, their offices, and everywhere. So in other words, he's slipped away. The Donald is no place to be seen. One of the Donald's front men and lackeys who was with the NAACP, another interesting character. That's what happens in these things. Interesting characters tend to pop up. His name is Leon Jenkins. He resigned from the head of the NAACP. He had a rather interesting reputation before he ended up in L.A. He wants to get this behind the LA NAACP. LA NAACP has always been a front for various Hollywood characters and other types. They gave old Sterling an award in 2009. The same year, the real estate mogul and LA Clipper owner paid $2.73 million to settle a claim when the government had sued him for refusing to rent apartments in Koreatown to Latinos and African Americans. They were going to give him his second award there. And Jenkins, former Detroit judge, was indicted in '88 on federal bribery charges. He beat that, but the Supreme Court of Michigan disbarred him. And he was president in California in 1981. This is from the LA Times, serving as attorney to the family of Letitia Harlings, an African-American girl who was fatally shot by a Korean merchant. If you recall, that was during the rebellion there. In '65, the state bar looking into misconduct allegations from Michigan. He was disbarred in 2001, tried to be reinstated in 2006, but was rejected. That happened to our friend Epley Bailey also. According to records, he made another attempt in 2012. So in other words, he claimed he turned his life around. He raised $2 million in 2011 to have the NAACP convention in Los Angeles. Well, no doubt about it. The people there, they needed the PR that Jenkins was able to provide to them. I'll see if I can find very quickly this. Well, let me make one quick announcement here. Mabel Williams, she was the wife of Mr. Williams, Robert Williams, wrote a book, Man with Guns Fled to Cuba, has passed. I believe she was 85. A service were held on the 25th in Detroit. And on Monday the 18th, well, it's all passed now, of April, the internment there. During our African History Month, we played a conversation with her in Angela Davis. So nonetheless, she has left Ralph Nader and his left-right alliance. We talked about that on the May Day program. We won't go into it anymore. We're just trying to, as they say, get a few things going here very, very quickly. Let's see if we have any other things. We had something here from the salon, if we can find it. There's an interesting, I'll have to put this up on Facebook, by Natalie Nicolaides, that is Vicky's daughter. Optimism keeps millenniums moving forward. Well, the sky's the limit. This is the motto of our generation, the Millennium generation. What makes it special? For starters, we are confident in every aspect of our lives. We are not only ambitious, but also vain and arrogant. Each of us aspires to become the next Nelson Mandela, superstar of Silicon Valley. Each of us wants to be one that cures AIDS. Furthermore, we carry it on as a fact, as we know it, that we will make it. Naturally, it follows that we often forget about the process of actually getting to the point. We envision the great picture and suppressed all parts in the middle. In a Freudian terms, this is a defensive mechanism Graduation is approaching, and we are so confident about reaching our potential. Then why are we still so nervous? We are not ignorant of what the process is. Those of us who want to become world leaders have to take the graduate record exam and apply to grad school, get jobs, network. We have to choose the path that will lead us to the highest level of achievement, ruling the world. This apparent function of the brain seems to be solely dedicated to those born in our generation, and to be self-assured with our life objectives is a condition that is out of our immediate control. Most of our parents were baby boomers. They did not grow up with such high ambitions. Instead, their ultimate goal was to get a stable job, have a family. They sought to provide us with what their parents could not afford. Our baby boomer parents wanted to aim high and make something beautiful out of their lives, and as a result, we are brass jerks. The actions of earlier millenniums, all of those computer geeks leading the digital revolution, give us an idea that what the future holds for the rest of us. Some of us will go on to achieve our goals, but many of us will settle for something similar but less than what we originally wanted. Well, past generations have done that. The rest of us will get jobs that fall either of the above categories, having middle life crises, opening an organic cupcake shop in the Bay Area. Well, they're already open. I hate to tell Natalie, probably won't happen. What follows? What prospect do we have? We are doomed to leave our futures for fate to decide. The moral of Homer's lengthy ode, the Iliad and the Odyssey, is that the journey is more meaningful than the end. Let's enjoy the journey, the process. Let's allow ourselves the freedom to dream and to strive to become what we want. Then change our minds completely and open that organic cake shop. We will still be special unicorns in our own mind. It's an interesting little piece there by Natalie Nicolaides, a very smart young lady. Anyway, on to the political part here and the Sabato people, and we need to get in onto the, as they say, proverbial clock here. This is by Alan Amowitz. Incidentally, you can get the same article by him at the Rasmussen polling organization. And you get a little newsletter from him. We don't take the out, but anyway, nonetheless, this is something, and I think Jerry Pippin and I talked about it once. I've talked about it a few times. How deep is the class divide in American politics today, according to some scholars, pundits? It is very deep indeed. In recent polls, the Washington Post, the Monkey Cage blog, etc. And from Larry Barstels of Vanderbilt University, the author of On Equal Democracy and a highly regarded public opinion scholar, presented evidence from multi-nation public poll surveys that show that the relationship between income and support for cuts in government spending was considerably stronger in the U.S. than in other industrial democracies. Because of disproportionate political influence wielded by upper-income citizens in the U.S., Bartels argued that their strong support for cutting spending has been a powerful influence on elite attitudes and ultimately on government policy. Bartels' findings were cited by Norman Dr. Paul Klingman of the New York Times, one of the nation's most influential liberal pundits, as evidence that the United States has become a class-ridden society in which income has powerful influence on political attitudes and behavior. Is this really true? Before accepting results from one study as authoritative, we should examine the evidence from other studies and the impact of social class there. This article, I analyzed the data from the 2012 election study, the most recent edition of one of the most widely used and respected academic surveys of the American electorate. The 2012 survey represented a national sample of more than 4,000 voters in person and via the internet before and after the November general election. Respondents were questioned about their social characteristics and opinion on a wide range of topics. Income and attitude and voting behavior in 2012. Perhaps the most single important political decision that American voters get to make is who will occupy the White House for 4 years. If a social class has a powerful influence on public opinion and public behavior, we find evidence of its effect in the presidential voting decision. And because of the strong relation between race, both income and partisanship in the U.S., I've displayed the results of non-Hispanic whites, African Americans, and Latinos separately in this. And he also looks at income. White families with incomes greater than 150,000 were only slightly more likely to vote for Willard Romney than white families with less than 30,000. There's no doubt about that. The GOP has done a good job of convincing low-income whites, but they should jump on that ship. Hispanic voters with family incomes greater than 100,000, Obama outpolled Willard Romney there. Why was there such a weak relation between income and presidential choice in 2012? The explanation of this finding is that income was weakly related to the most important political attitudes that shape voter decisions. Attitudes such as party identification, ideological identification, opinions on the health care law known as Obamacare, our words, not his, and other questions after the controlling for race, the opinions of upper-class voters were similar to those of lower-class voters. That's from the old monkey cage. And he has various figures here. We'll skip around a little bit here. His figure 2 shows, and you can't see it, but I will try to put it up. But both whites and African Americans, there was only a weak relationship between family income and support for cutting domestic social spending in both groups. With incomes greater than 150,000, were only slightly more likely to favor spending cuts than those with incomes of less than 30,000. Now, the party ID, the results here show very clear attitudes towards spending on social programs are shaped more by partisanship than simple economic interest. The lower income Republicans generally favored cutting spending on social programs, while upper class Democrats did not. Show regardless of income, white voters attended religious service. Very important finding here. At least once a week, were much more likely to vote for Willard. Family income had a weak relationship here. And the majority of highly observant, religious type whites voted for Willard Romney, regardless of income. Observant whites with incomes less than 15,000 also voted for Willard Romney, as they were losing their benefits there. There's no question that economic inequality has increased in the U.S. over the past few decades. Income and wealth are now more concentrated in the hands than at any time, at least since the 20s, which the Republicans run their policies on. The partisan orientation and policy preference of super wealthy are probably very different from those of Americans and even those in higher income categories found in public opinion polls. The opinions and voting decisions are influenced much more by factors such as race, very race-conscious country, and that's a very important idea to push, or a fact. It's not an assumption, but race plays a very important situation. That was the reason for the success of the William Horton, otherwise known as Willie Horton campaign, the Southern Strategy, Ronald Reagan, and the Tea Party Republicans, which align their basic ideology with one Craig Cobb of North Dakota. He will probably soon be going to Missouri. And Glenn Cross of Missouri also, the man that killed people down in Overland Park, Kansas. And if you look at somebody's kind of an interesting situation there, like Donald Burling, who is a man that has over $1 billion, but has the same racial attitudes, sort of old Cross and Cobb. The only difference is these people being Nazis, though Sterling couldn't join their party, but he makes the case of what is happening in the Zionist state. And incidentally, in the Zionist state, and we'll talk more about this, there is now a law, and Benjamin Netanyahu is finally sponsoring it, Litany, the social justice ministers against it, that would make it a Jewish state. Now, what that means is it would become not a secular state, but a purely religious state. So thus, other people there, I guess the Arabs would have to, as they say, move into the Palestinian state elsewhere, because they would not be included in the definition of quote-unquote the Jewish state. The Zionist state has always been a secular state, period. And there's a lot of confusion there about the Jewishness. Does a non-observant Jew could arrive there? Well, a person that is a non-believer, by their definition, could not be a Jew. So there's a big problem there. And then they get into things like anti-Semitism. Well, the problem there is the Arab Jews that live, the Arabs that live, and not Jews, that live in the El Israel, as we call it, Zionist state, are Semitic people too. And that is part of the lobby here, playing on the ignorance of the American people. The American people have no idea what Semitic people are. So thus they apply the marker of Semitic people, and they come in anti-Semitic. Well, if Abu Mazen is an Arab, he's a Palestinian, and he's Semitic. So if you are anti-PLO, anti-Abu Mazen, you are anti-Semitic. So a lot of confusion comes. So we go all the way from Natalie Nicolaides to the crystal ball. Now this is by Professor Amowitz. He is the Alvin Bartley Professor of Political Science at Emory University in Atlanta, Georgia. And you can also catch his column, incidentally, at the Rasmussen site there. That poll has consistently had President Obama much higher in the polls than, say, the Washington Post and others. He's always been basically above 45% and closer to 50% in the Rasmussen poll than these other polls. Nonetheless, this will do it for us. We shall return with the week that was and Numbers Man. A lot of good number sets out there. We'll talk more about it. Have a good weekend. Good day.